for Table Topics Marathon. Before we get started, Pete, do you have any business to add?
Just officers next week.
Yep. Prepare an agenda. Anything special you'd like on the agenda?
Jim wanted to talk about this, how to work the schedule with the annual contest, so I haven't scheduled anything for the week after, because I'm waiting for the results of that meeting to know where we need to have contests and stuff preparatory to the annual contest.
And that's the spring contest.
Right.
Okay, most likely in March, but we can discuss that next week.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the schedule is, but I'll put that on the agenda so I know that we need to be responsive to that the next couple of months.
Sounds good. Jim, do you have anything else to add as area governor?
I'll be visiting probably the other two clubs, and I would like to inquire as to what topics to pursue in leadership, our midwinter leadership training time frame. Is there something there that we need to touch and specific topics? Because I would like to include that in the 3 training sessions that I'll be attempting during February.
Is next week too late to talk about that?
No, that's the ideal
I
time.
had something in mind, emphasis on had, and maybe it'll come back.
Maybe. I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, so we will add training sessions to our agenda.
Yeah, training session topics.
Okay. Sounds good. Alan, treasurer, anything special you want on the agenda?
I sent in Stacy's application, member application, so it's, I think I sent it in on Friday of last week, so yeah, I should have that.
Great. So we're growing. That's good. All right. Well, let's get this Table Topics Marathon going, and let's all introduce or welcome Pete Bruno, our Table Topics Master.
So all of us get to compete, all of us are eligible, and the idea is to spend much of the hour doing multiple table topics and then voting at the end, and knowing that the top 3 would possibly go on to the contest in the spring. So we might go ahead and feel as though this is unfair to those not absent because this is a special member and give others a chance to participate, but usually the top 3 people are eligible to go on to the next level, which is of course our area contest, generally held here in Glendive. And remember, if you win, just so that you don't throw in the towel, because if you win, there are still others that can fill that role. So we've never strong-armed people to have to go to Billings or any place like that they don't want to go, because we've got enough participants and enough talents among us that we can represent, each of us can represent Glendive well. So without further ado, it was suggested we try out these new table topics so that the playing field was level. And so I think I'll start with Jim, and I'll walk around and hit the lights for you, Jim. Okay. And another way to level the playing field is just to ask you to take the one in the front and see what you get. So go ahead, Jim. So by the way, we're shooting for a minute to a minute and a half.
This is a cover.
And this is the cover. You can't talk about the cover.
Well, I could.
Okay, let's try.
I'd rather talk about a topic, however.
Okay, now that we're ready.
Fellow table topics presenters. What is the one item you own that you really should throw away, but probably never will? I confess to being a semi-hoarder. When we had our auction sale 6 years ago in March, I still had access to farm storage. Now that we sold the property back at the end of last year, of 2012 actually, I do not have that access any longer. A lot of reality has come home to roost that you don't have a place for all of those tools, toys, and other things that you used to use in your iron pile. So, as I look in my office, I have probably 600 or 800 books. I have a lot of old magazines from subscriptions that I have no longer kept up. I spent at least an hour Tuesday of this week responding to emails with an unsubscribe request. I am really, this is something I work on during this time of the year every year. What would it be? Old magazines, give a whole bunch of books to the attic, and part with some computer parts that I will never use. Mr. Tabletop Vice Chair.
Thank you, Jim. I'll give you back your chair as I wander around inflicting damage on the troops. I got the cover in my pocket now. You want the cover.
If you could take any job for just 1 month, what job would you like to have? Assume that you would have the skills and knowledge to perform adequately. Well, this was kind of one of those topics I think that we kind of went around the room and we kind of talked about before. If we could do something, what would we like to do? And of course I said, man, I'd love to be a real estate agent. I love to go into houses and to see how they look inside. It's mostly the knowledge just to see how other people do with their houses. How do they design them? What kind of room structure do they have? I always call it the arch. I have this great fantasy about arches. For some reason, every time I see an arch in a house, I think, oh, that house is just going to be wonderful inside. And then I like the laminate kitchens on the counters. And I think, oh, that would be so nice to have in a house too. But mostly, I think I just like to go around and see different places, what they look like, see how they decorated them, see what's inside those houses. Maybe it's just a part of me being nosy or something, I don't know, but I would just love to be a real estate agent. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Here you go, George.
Table topic master, fellow table topic presenters. If you were on an African safari, what would you absolutely have to see for your trip to be complete? Well, I don't know if I ever will be on an African safari, but I would like to go over there and visit. I have a relative, second cousin, who has a safari, a picture-taking safari. And so that's one place that I could get started. So if I so desired, that was a high priority, I probably could go. I guess I would have to see the elephants. Just like when you go to the circus and you're like, what do you have to see? The elephants, of course. And if you're brave enough, you can even get up and ride one. But in Africa, I would expect to see the elephants in a little more natural habitat instead of like a circus with a chain on their foot. And always it's kind of sad to see an elephant in the circus and it's not performing, he's there with the chain on his foot and it goes back and forth, back and forth. So I would have to see an elephant in its natural surroundings.
Thank you, Table Topics Master Pete. If you won a contest in which your prize was to select any 3 guests to appear on a popular late-night talk show, which 3 people would you choose? Well, I've been staying up too late these last few nights watching Jay Leno finish up his
Tonight Show, and then I love Jimmy Fallon. He is just so darn funny, and he just has a quirky sense of humor, and I sit there and giggle, and my husband goes, huh? But what 3 late night talk show people I would want to be on there? Justin Timberlake, I don't know that I'm a big fan of his, but I do like him, and he's always funny when he's on Jimmy Fallon. They do all kinds of funny skits and singing, and just very talented. Who else would I like to see on there? Maybe President Obama, just to see kind of more as the person, not necessarily the president, just very interesting. And the third person, maybe have Jay Leno, maybe interview him as to see, you know, his thoughts and what his plans are, and just to kind of have him as the interviewee rather than the interviewer. Thank you.
Toastmasters. If any one of the national holidays had to be celebrated twice a year, 6 months apart, which one would you want it to be? I've always kind of liked Valentine's Day. Child in school, grade school, we'd all have a chance to make this box for our Valentines and cut a hole in the top of the box. At the end, everybody would go and put their Valentines into, you know, whoever box they liked, and it was always kind of fun to see who gave me a Valentine. But as a growing up, I think I was still, because it allows me to reinforce to my wife and carnations every year, and I'll be sending one to Layton over at MSU. So I think the appreciation I get from the flowers that I give to people, I think I would like twice a year, 6 months apart. Thank you.
Fellow Toastmasters, if you had to choose your own epitaph of 8 words or fewer, listen dates, what would you say? This is a weighty topic, even for a table topic contest. What would I choose to go on my gravestone or be my epitaph? Here lies a good man. I cheated a little bit on choosing this one for Jim. So one of us should have had it, but Jim made a comment about this earlier. I share something with George, and that is there's a group of guys that I exercise with for my $30,000 knee that we have the same kind of camaraderie that George shared in table topics last week or the week before. So I want to just comment to you the fact that it's really good to have a bunch of guys to get together with and keep your health going in the right direction. That was very well done.
Mr. Table Topics Master and challenging question presenter, fellow Toastmasters, if everyone were required to wear a hat at all times, what sort of hat by position and perhaps in society? I have actually chosen a hat to wear. And the hat to wear that I have chosen is the one that makes me wise at all times.
If you could open your own retail store, what type of merchandise would you sell? I'm a great beginner. I was a huge fan of Davy Allison, who passed away about 7 years ago, and I'm even a greater fan of Dale Earnhardt Sr., and he passed away maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. I think both of them were great in their sports and great in their fields, and I just love the atmosphere of being in NASCAR. It is the most challenging, fast-paced, moving experience I think that there actually is. You actually get to see drivers at their worst. You get to see drivers at their best. And sometimes you pick out a driver and you wish you wouldn't even have known them. But I can honestly say with both drivers, I was very moved and I was so sad when they both passed away. And I think that they brought so much to their careers. And that's one of the reasons why I'd like to be a NASCAR retailer.
Again, no cheating whatsoever.
Hello, Toastmasters and Table Topic Master. You no doubt heard the expression, they couldn't pay me enough to do that job. What job would that be for you? Well, I know some of us have watched that on TV during this job, and I know that some of those don't look very appealing, or they haven't been appealing. I guess I haven't thought about that a lot, about which job I wouldn't like to do. And one of the reasons I don't like plumbing very well is I can never fit myself underneath the sink without being stiff for the next 2 days. And it seems kind of exasperating because it's just when you get it turned. So I maybe it's just that I don't have a good aptitude for that. But then when the plumber comes and it's cold and somebody's basement is full of sewage, and they go down and they have to remount the sewage. And all that muck.
Now, there's something I agree with George on, because whenever I worked on plumbing, it would always take a whole day.
What is the longest line you have ever stood in? Well, last summer we went to Disneyland. So the longest line would have to be all of them. We would wait and then we'd finally get to the ride and we would do it and oh, it's great, that was so scary. Let's do it again. And then we'd get back in line and we'd do it again. But what was so wonderful at Disneyland was, even though these lines ones was the Cars ride, there was so much detail. I mean, it looked like you were out in Arizona, but it wasn't. The attention to detail was amazing. So the long lines were definitely well worth it.
Before I get started,
would it be appropriate for us to maybe vote for our favorite table topics after one round or two rounds, or can we remember which was the best at the end of it?
Yeah, this is kind of like the annual national dog show, isn't it? It's kind of like, you know, who's best of show. So Jim's got a thought.
I actually am recording as much as I can of the questions to that I could use that as a reminder.
Okay. Well, that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, I just know, but 20 minutes down the road, I might not remember what everybody said, and so if you could write down the reminder, it'll help jog my memory.
Okay, so then just to clarify, so at the end, we're gonna do
Around 3 times and giving you a chance to vote, and then going around 3 more times and giving you a chance to vote before we quit.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm not counting the first minute now.
Looking at this question, I wish you would. What is something you forgot once that you will more than likely never forget again? That's a tough one. Probably when I was a farmer, and my dad would tell me how to do something, and sometimes I would forget what I was supposed to be doing it, and so I would just kind of try to muddle through it, and most of the times I wasn't successful, and my dad would say, "No, I told you to do it this way," and I usually didn't have to be told twice, and so probably in general, when I forget something that I'm supposed to be doing and how to do it, if I'm reminded of what I need to do, I normally don't forget it the second time. Thank you.
Fellow Toastmasters, which particular historical document or portion thereof do you think every American should know by heart? Document. See, now there are lots of choices here. Certainly the Pledge of Allegiance, but not actually a document, is it? Or a portion of a document? What about Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address? Should we remember a portion of, or what about the United States Constitution, the legal document that guides our country? There's lots of choices. What about, it doesn't say, just legal document, it says historical. What about a portion of Ephesians written by Paul? What document do you think every American should know? We've become very diverse, and so I think I would stray from Scripture and probably the Declaration of Independence. These truths we hold self-evident. Is the pursuit of happiness something we should have memorized? This is a perplexing question with lots of options, and I would encourage you in the next week to join with me in a search to discover things to know and perhaps even learn in school. Without one glance whatsoever,
Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. If you could stand at the pinnacle of any natural object or man-made structure, what would it be? I stood at the feet of what is known as Corcovado. That is the Christ with the outstretched arms up on Tijuca, in Tijuca Forest, which is a reserve in just outside of Rio de Janeiro. It's incredible. I would go back in a heartbeat. I've been there twice. I would like to return. I was there with my sister. I don't know if I've ever been there with my wife. I have been there with others and alone, but it's an awe-inspiring place. Once even the clouds were so dense there at about 3,300 feet that we didn't see the cross until maybe, although we were standing at the base, we didn't see it probably for the first 45 minutes or more. And then suddenly it peeked through and just a momentary thing of sunlight and brilliance, and then it was swallowed again by the clouds. Unbelievable scenario. The favelas, the crime that is just literally at the base, and the grandeur of the view of the bays there, Copacabana, Ipanema, all of the various beaches are off in the distance. Absolutely breathtaking. That's my choice.
Jim's a brave man. If you've been following the news about a week ago, that particular pinnacle was hit by lightning and a portion of the front fell off. And it has now been repaired. We found out through the national news that there are actually little like manhole covers where people can climb up through that and make repairs to it. Good choice, Jim.
What do you think is the best conversation piece in your home? Fellow Toastmasters, I would probably say the best piece of conversation in our home is in our kitchen. My dad actually built the house that I'm currently living in. Inside the house in the kitchen is he used an almost scalloped edge on top of the sink just to form like a shelf layer. And on that shelf layer we have one black rooster over here and one black rooster over there, and it's all painted white, and so it kind of contrasts with the rest of the house. And people always say, now how did you do that? I wonder how he did that. And we often question him, Dad, how did you get those to just make a circle every so often? He said, well, I used a dishpan. It was very easy. And I thought, I would never have thought of a dishpan to use just to go around and cut around the edges, just to make those scalloped edges. And so actually that's the one piece I think that's really a conversation starter in our house.
Tabletop Master Pete, fellow Toastmasters. What would your dream house look like? Be as descriptive as possible. Well, I've lived in too many houses, actually. Maybe 3 or 4 really, really much time. If I was to build a house to be a dream house right now, it would be different than if I built a dream house, say, 50 years ago. Right now, I would not go for size. I would go for easy to clean, easy to paint, easy to shingle. So I would probably have a 1-story house. Everything on one level, I could afford that. And wouldn't have to go up a lot of stairs. 3 stories, so I live in a house with lots of stairs. And as you get older, I've heard that if you're not an invalid, it's healthy to have the stairs. Maybe we could go that and still go for the easy. and you wouldn't have to carry things up and down. So I would also have a yard that didn't have grass. I'd have a yard that was a desert yard, which I think would be more popular as time goes by and water becomes more precious. That you wouldn't have to water. And maybe rocks and desert plants. So I guess that would be my dream house at this point. All right.
Thank you, Toastmaster Pete. If you were writing an autobiography, what would be the book's title besides your name? Autobiography. Book's title. Yeah, you have Donna. Who is she? That might be a good title. Give you something to think about. Who is she? And then inside, you can learn all about me and my hobbies. I don't really have any talents. Hobbies, interests, family. Definitely my family. But yeah, I would say a good book title would be Who is she? And you find out all about Donna.
I recently sent Joe Rice an email telling her that you're the best of the best, so I don't buy that talent part at all.
Toastmaster Pete, fellow Toastmasters, if you could see the front page of a national newspaper dated January 1st, 2100, about 87 years from now, or 86 years, what do you imagine that the main headline might say? I try to imagine what life is going to be 86 years from now. I imagine that the technology that we know now will be ancient, and probably cars will be flying through the air instead of being on the ground. People will be able to just talk into their hand and talk with somebody around the world, because they'll probably have a little chip in their hand that they can talk into. So I think probably what the headline for January 1st, 2100 is, technology 86 years ago was very primitive. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Interestingly enough, on the national news last night, we are now working 5 days a month more than we did in 1979, because we almost have what Alan was talking about, these little offices that go with us wherever we are. Fellow Toastmasters, if the daytime high temperature had to be exactly the same every day of the year, what would you want that temperature to be? We had that one a couple of weeks ago, and Alan and I agree about 72. So let's try another one. If you had to describe your personality in terms of a farm animal, did someone have this one? I don't think so. Oh, you did? This is a good one.
I'm going to start over again.
Okay, I will do this one. These got in the middle. If you had to describe your personality in terms of a farm animal, which animal would you choose? Growing up on a ranch in Arizona, I'd have to pick a horse. As a kid, you got up early in the morning and fed your horse, and you did this with your horse, you did that with your horse, you did roundup with a horse. As a kid in Arizona, you got to pretend you were an Indian riding bareback. And so, then one awful, dreadful morning, that horse decided it was too old to enjoy the early hours going on Roundup, and I had chosen to do Roundup Apache style, no saddle whatsoever. And that horse, late in life, developed the ability to buck, having discovered that if it couldn't knock me off by running underneath a mesquite bush, it could buck me off going through a gully. So the horse, for both its loyalty and its honoriness, would be a great choice, although it's just a close first to the dachshund that I had that could actually go ahead and cut that horse out of the other horses and put it in the corner of the corral. So there we go. Now, we've got ourselves a terrible task. I realize at this point, should we ever do this again, and I hope we will, that we would need to vote each round and then look back at who we voted for each round to decide who was the overall winner, because these were quite good. It seems like practice is making some kind of perfect. And on an off day, maybe someone would go ahead and sneak above the others. But this is a very difficult task. Jim's got some information that may help us in terms of our voting at this point. Jim, would you please?
The first question posed to me was in regards to what would you toss is the way I recorded it. In terms of accumulation of things in life. Nancy was challenged with what job would you take for was it a day? Something like that. George was charged with what would you have to see on an African safari? Donna was asked to select 3 guests for a contest and then reflected on who she would choose. Alan was asked which national holiday he would like to have repeated twice each year. Pete was challenged to choose his epitaph in 8 words or less. Here lies, and then whatever. Jim, I was charged with what hat would I choose to wear? Nancy was given, if you were to open a retail store, what would you sell? George was charged with if they couldn't pay me enough for which job? Donna was charged, which is the longest line you ever stood in? Alan was charged with, what is something you forgot once and more than likely will never forget again? I think I heard Dad's advice. Pete picked on the question, which historical document should you know by heart? I was given, what natural or man-made pinnacle would you like to stand at? Nancy was given, what is the best conversation piece in your home? George, what would your dream house look like? Donna, what would be the title of your autobiography? Alan, if you see the headlines at the year 2100, what would they say? And Pete, if you had to describe yourself as a farm animal, which animal would you choose? Mr. Table Topics Master.
So kind of like we do in big contests, let me encourage you to vote for first, second, and third on your ballot. Let's see how that turns out. And then when you're done, just fold them over, send them down here, hold them up, and I'll come get them.
Thank you.
One chapter of your book would be how I became a leader. Look, no, here's from here. I'll go read you this way. I should have probably given Nancy this card here that you wanted to talk on that. I'll get her to talk on this for a minute and a half while I work on the ballots. It's the title card.
It just says your chat pack purchase helps employ adults with special needs. Each chat pack has been carefully packaged by special needs adults who work for Ability Building Services in Yankton, South Dakota. We're very grateful for the partnership in this venture. Isn't this cool to have something made in Yankton, South Dakota? I think that is just so neat.
Which town in South Dakota?
Just says Yankton.
Yankton.
I never ever hear of anything made in this part of the region of the country. Maybe everybody else has, but I just haven't. Especially something that's a valuable resource like this.
I would just throw in a thing. I received an email this morning from Matt Kuntz. He introduced this gentleman to us about 3 years ago. Matt Kuntz is a Montana native, I believe from Broadus area, somewhere in southeastern Montana. Matt has an unusual disability. He served as an officer and a U.S. Army officer in Germany. He does very well. And yet his speech is approximately, on a good day, 30 words a minute. Sometimes even 10 words a minute because of controlled stuttering. He happens to be the executive director for the NAMI, it's a National Association of Mental Illness, I believe is the one. And he sent out an email today that highlighted some things that where they're having some successes. I'm of course a staunch Republican and I see a lot of things that bother me and under the current administration, but some of the things I see I really do like, and that is some of the things that I have seen happen with people who would otherwise be entirely disregarded. When Miss Montana was chosen a year and a half ago, as an autistic person, I was wondering, and I became one of her greatest fans. Matt Kuntz is a person who, in spite of his incredibly belabored speech, is an incredible organizer and does extremely well at what he does. There's a forgotten part of our society that I'm glad to see are being recognized and respected.
Thank you. We have a tie. Would the top two people be willing to engage in a bake-off? Okay.
Who are those top two people?
You're one of them.
Oh,
Right.
in a bake-off. Who is my competitor?
You'll find out in a moment.
Mr. Toastmaster, what is the one item you own that has virtually no monetary value, but has such sentimental value that you would not sell it for $1,000? My wife and I brought a few wedding gifts back from Brazil. We were married on March 19th, 1968. That'll be 46 years ago, come up in March. We received a serrated knife, and it has endured and looks very good in spite of 46 years of near daily use. And we also brought and have remaining a plastic container that my wife used to hold flour. It's an ugly pink with a white press-on lid, something that is so dated that a garage sale would probably be embarrassed to have it. Of those two items, I'd never give up that pink plastic container that has held flour for most of those 46 years. It just means something because it was a wedding gift from a Brazilian couple. He served in Italy in World War II as a Brazilian paratrooper, and it has too much sentimental value to ever discard. Mr. Table Topics Master.
And I guess like that wonderful organization experience counts. George is the other contestant.
See the tail topic master, Toastmasters. If you could design any new ride and attraction at Walt Disney World, what would it be? Well, if I could design a ride that's different than all the others, we have quite a variety now, things that turn you upside down and sideways. I would work on a gravity-free. Somehow we'd have a chamber that we could reduce the gravity like they do for experimental purposes when they're training astronauts. And you could go into this ride and you probably go around in a big circle, but you would not feel the gravity. You could float from this cushioned wall to that cushioned wall, and I think that people of all ages would pretty much enjoy that. And it might give them a feeling of what it would be like in the future when they're going to ride into space, which I imagine some of the people in their younger years now will. And so I believe that the anti-gravity ride at Walt Disney's park would be a hit.
Well done.
Both times we're qualifying on the final.
Okay, very good. So, given the quality of the table topics, I will declare a tie for first place. And each of you shall get a ribbon. And Alan, you'll be pleased to know that you're the second place person. So if this is in fact a contest, you would be eligible to go on to the next level as well. So without further ado, let me make these awards and turn the control of the meeting back to Donna. Perhaps you'll make a comment about the meeting itself. Oh, good idea. Where are we going?
Here, let's go up there because
Let's go up where the camera
let's
is.
record it where the camera is recording.
Go ahead, George.
Got an extra blood in here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, we'll make that work. As Toastmaster and Table Topic Master, it is my extreme pleasure to go ahead and award you Table Topics Master Extraordinaire, George Scarrett and Jim Schreier.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Very good.
Congratulations, George. Met my match.
Well done. So Donna, comments oversight of the meeting.
I thought this was a fun meeting. We started at noon and we're finishing up on time. We didn't have as many members as I was hoping that we would have, but it worked out great. We all had 3 chances, some of us 4, to do table topics, and they were all very interesting and fun. And I enjoy table topics because you get to learn so much about other people. Nancy, we learned you're a NASCAR fan. I didn't know that. I thought that was fun to learn. And table topics is always a challenge for me, so I appreciate the chance to be able to work on that. I thought it was good. I thought it was fun, and I hope we do it again sometime. So, good job, Pete.
All right. Well, we are achieving our goal of being done at about 5 of. Are there any other things that you would like to say before we adjourn, officers or members?
Just an informational item. This past weekend, the trio went to their midwinter training down in Houston, I believe it was, and they came back and they're just ecstatic with what they experienced. Rochelle Williams, our district governor, pointed out that this was as close to drinking out of a fire hose that she's ever experienced. The information was so abundant and so well presented, and it was just continuous for hours and hours and hours. They came back with a lot of really practical notions. Dave Scadam, who is serving as our the third person of the trio has what he's called I'm dropping the name right now, but he's got an online Toastmasters club started to use the telephone, and it's kind of a novel thing. I sat in on one meeting. They actually have 20 members, and they're meeting, and I believe it's out of Butte, but they are in the process of organization. They've met 2 or 3 times already in the process, but kind of a novel concept where they actually have online or on the telephone plus online table club meetings. So anyway, it's just informational item on another idea that's floating around out there.
Very good. Other comments before we adjourn, fellow Toastmasters? Thank you for participating well. I should mention, everybody received at least 2 votes. Yeah, so very good meeting indeed. So be careful out there, stay warm and dry, and we'll see you officers next week and everyone else for a regular meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay.